Hello and welcome to Stateside with me and Brenna Duncan. How you doing, Brenna, over in Los Angeles? Orange County,
Orange County, yes. Thank you.
California.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
sorry.
Please stop associating me with Los Angeles.
What's wrong with Los Angeles
It's a
apart
terrible
from
place.
it being a terrible place?
I
So
mean, just the traffic is like the number one thing I hate about Los Angeles.
yes, they took
It's
away
it's
all
a
the public transport and replaced it with cars, with
yes, and
16
that's
lane highways, which
and it has not improved. Like every
no.
time they do something, they're like, "Oh, we're gonna put this little overpass so that you can avoid this." Nope, doesn't work. And then we start burning them down. So,
Yes.
oh,
Yeah. So, yeah.
yes.
Anyway, we're not going to talk about LA's terrible transport system. Oh, we've got Dave W in the chat. Hi, Dave. Dave's
Hey,
the
we have
only one who
people.
got he got the memo that we had moved the
Perfect.
time of this. If you're watching this after the event, thank you for joining us. We're going to do a 45-minute show tonight. You being nobbled after this morning, says Alan the Inquirer. Channel H Dunbar says Trump is chicken. And One Angry Pagan's there. Evening Badgers. Oh, we're getting some people in. Oh, Rich is there, number 3. Hello. It's like, we're populating. I don't know if you can see this, but we're populating the chat on the screen. So that's all good. So let's talk about Kamala and the fact that Trump seems to be running scared from her. So what's the ding dong on the debate then?
So from what I read, so of course he said, "Oh yeah, I'm not going to debate," because they had a debate scheduled in the middle of September, and Trump said, no, I'm not going to." She wasn't really voted. She wasn't really elected the nominee. All this bullshit that is entirely not true. By the way, she is the vice presidential pick on the ticket, which means you were voting for both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And because Joe Biden
Yep.
pulled out of the race, it
Yep.
actually automatically brings her up. She secured all
Yep.
the delegates. She did her job, what she was supposed to do. And so she's legitimately the nominee.
But also he debated Biden when he wasn't officially the nominee.
That was because they had a plan to make the old man look bad. And guess what?
It worked.
Succeed.
But
so
it kind of
they're
blew
like,
up in
"Oh
their
yeah,
face, didn't it?
yeah." And they're like, "Oh," and then Biden made the decision that it was time for him to step aside. And the problem is that the momentum that Kamala got after she became like the nomination scared the shit out of everybody on that side. And the only thing that they could really do was say, "Oh, we're not going to debate."
That's
And
such a
because you cannot put a felon next to a prosecutor.
That's a good way of putting it.
That's been the way, because she actually knows how to argue against people who are not making the best decisions in their life. I mean, fraud is a big deal.
Yeah.
Especially because she was the Attorney General of California, which she prosecuted, fraud. She prosecuted
Sexual assault.
sexual assault, sexual predators, everything that Trump
Incitement to
is.
riot.
Everything Trump is what she actually knows how to fight against. Now that scares him.
Yeah.
Scares him to death.
Yeah.
So he pulled out of the agreement. He went to Fox News or Newsmax, the worst version of Fox News, and said, "Oh yeah, we'll set up a debate," and on a different day, completely different day, and now he can use that as, "Oh, she doesn't want to debate me," because she flat out said, "Anytime, any place, I'll be ready." So I believe that the original debate is still on, quote unquote. Where if Trump shows up, he looks like a coward.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. So As for now, we still have about a month away or so.
Okay, so by the way that the polls are going, are we still looking at like it being very, very close, or do you think it's becoming less close as we go on?
I think right now it's still pretty close. I I don't like I said before, the after the Democratic convention, there's always going to be a huge boost. So we really won't see anything until maybe September, maybe right before when the actual debate is scheduled, because that during that time is when people pay attention to actually what people are saying,
Yeah.
actually what these candidates are saying. And so we might see a little bit of a change. I think some of the bigger indicators of what's happening are voter registration.
Right.
And we're seeing a much bigger voter registration, especially amongst the Gen Z
Okay.
voting bloc,
Yeah.
which, although they aren't the largest, millennials are the largest here, boomers and millennials. Um, but Gen Z is turning up. The fundraising is a big deal. And then we still do not have a vice presidential pick, so we still don't have the running mate.
Do
And I
you
think
think it's going to make that much of a difference? So it's been announced it's going to be announced tomorrow. It's been announced that it's going to be announced.
yeah, they've been doing that for about a week.
Yeah.
So
Do you think it's going to make that much of a difference to Harris's chance of winning?
I think the calculus for vice presidential picks is who they represent. I'm
Right.
not saying that vice presidents are not qualified. I'm not saying that, like, all our vice presidential, especially in the Democratic side, have all been qualified. Even Mike Pence was qualified to be vice president. On the other side, because I mean, he's perfectly capable of taking over the presidency.
Yeah.
JD Vance is not, and I think that also scares them. I think that there is a role that vice presidents play when it comes to the election, and you're more likely to get the state or the demographic, such as Kamala Harris was mostly picked because she is a black and brown woman, and she really pulled that up. Again, absolutely 100% qualified for the position.
Yeah.
Not saying that she has it. It's just very helpful.
I've seen the cartoon where someone said, can you tell me about you only getting this job because you're like, of your skin color and the circumstances of your birth, and the person says, well, no, you to a middle-aged white man, well, no, you tell me.
Exactly.
And I was like, yeah, this has been going on for a long time. Now that the tables are turned, they don't like it because, say it with me, if you're used to, being in charge of everything, equality feels like oppression.
Yep. Yeah, so I think that the vice president does the running mate does try to get this perfectly needed demographic, and if it's Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania, Tim Walz is really more like, he's been really big for Gen Z, which is shocking. He when was it the Marjorie Stonewall high school was shot up with the kids.
Okay.
Yeah, that the high school was shot up, and the students rallied together and created the gun violence prevention, or comprehensive gun control their group. He supported them. Right. And that's a big deal when you have governors like that.
Okay.
Of course, we have Mark.
He's Minnesota. Is Minnesota traditionally a red state or a blue state?
No, it's swung a few times.
Okay.
And so I think that's also like the swing states, like like we're never going to find one. Like, again, I was shocked that Kamala Harris was picked, but it wasn't because of California. It was because
Right.
of a different demographic. So swing states are usually a big deal, especially swing states that are slowly turning into blue states.
Yeah.
Republicans do this too. They try to get those kind of on edge ones too, which is why JD Vance is from Ohio. Ohio has one way or the other.
Yeah.
So they're trying to hold on to Ohio.
Well,
The hillbilly.
You got Josh Shapiro who's from Pennsylvania, and
that's a big one.
I've been playing with there's maps you can get where you can see which states you need to win, and I can't really see any way for Kamala to win without Pennsylvania. It seems that is,
and I think that's going to be that's the highest person on the list right now is Josh Shapiro.
Right.
Of course, there's like, oh, we love Mark Kelly, we love Tim Walz, we love Gretchen Whitmer. But I think when it comes to strategy, it's going to be geared more towards Josh Shapiro.
Yeah. Well, I think it's coming down to those three men, isn't it? It's not Gretchen Whitmer. It's going to be Mark Kelly.
Yeah, those have. They have definitely been on the list.
Walz. What's his name? Walz. Walz. Tim Walz.
Yeah, Tim Walz.
And and then Josh Shapiro. I think they're going to be your last standing people for this. I think they're the ones who have had the phone calls today, letting them know. I
believe Mark Kelly had posted a tweet saying, "Oh, I'm gonna focus on Arizona," and then about 10 minutes later, the tweet was taken down.
Oh,
so
really?
that means that something happened, or it was a mistake. Like, he wasn't quite sure where he was going to be. But so definitely Mark Kelly's still in the race for that. Okay. Tim Walz is still in the race, and Josh Shapiro.
I mean, all three of them are states that could go either way, aren't they?
Yes, and again, those are usually the strategy when it comes to picking your running mate. Is you're looking for the demographic that they represent.
Yeah.
Which is why Pete Buttigieg is not really that great of a pick right now, because his demographic is gay. Like, that's it. And I don't think that's necessary. That's why you would pick. That's the demographic, because he's not represented. He's not voted statewide in Indiana. He was a mayor, Mayor Pete. Yeah. We love Mayor Pete. But also what's good is that he has been talking to Fox News.
Yes.
They actually he's like
brilliant.
him.
He's brilliant. He puts himself across so well.
So he's a really good surrogate.
Yeah.
And of course he's going to maintain a cabinet position that way, but I think Josh Shapiro is going to be at my bets are on Josh Shapiro.
Okay, can we change the subject a little bit? I want to talk about Robert Kennedy Jr., if you don't mind. The spoiler candidate. This is a guy who's an anti-vaxxer. He's an AIDS denier. He's not playing with a full deck, as far as a few people are concerned. They found a dead worm in his head once, and he sounds really weird. I sounded a bit weird when I was saying that. But I've got a cold. That's my excuse. I find it very difficult to listen to him. I know that's awful and probably a bit ableist, but I found it difficult to listen to Biden when Biden was debating Trump, because his voice was so pained when he talked. It sounded as if I just wanted to say, "Oh, mate, just have a lie down. Just here's some honey and some lemon." And
he definitely needed
rest, my friend. He was
definitely starting to come down with whatever he was coming down, and then he got COVID.
But is this Kennedy guy? Is he just running as a spoiler candidate? Is that the plan?
Yes, here? I believe, because John Oliver did the thing on him. Yes. I think it was the last night.
Yeah.
And you start looking at this guy, and you're like, he's entirely not qualified to even run. Like, he doesn't he hasn't done anything. He has no real. The only message, of course, is the anti-vax, which he denies.
Oh, also, he's anti-establishment, despite literally being from the Kennedy family dynasty.
He's if you don't know, he's Robert F. Kennedy, former Attorney General of the United States, and he was the Democratic nomination until he got assassinated. So that's his father that we're talking about. We're talking about one of the greatest men of all times, and this guy is not that.
No,
he is completely the opposite of the greatest man in the world.
Also, his uncle John was president and was assassinated.
Yes,
in 1963.
It's
the
Kennedy trait.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. But no, I find. I mean, I watched the John Oliver thing. That's why I kind of wanted to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So for those who don't know, because I only found this out last night, I was watching this morning actually, when I was watching John Oliver. He went over to Samoa to spread his anti-vax bullshit, and very soon after, 80 people died from measles on the island of Samoa, which is a very small, it's a very small place. Not many people live in there. It was devastating for the community, and then he denied that he had anything to do with it. He said, "No, it wasn't me." And the other thing that it was pulled up on is there was a book that he endorsed, that he wrote the preference for, the forward for, and in it talked about kids who were dropped dead after having the COVID vaccination. And one of the children featured on literally the front cover was a child who died in 2019 who hadn't been vaccinated, and basically his parents had to go and to the publisher and sort of relive the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to them, saying, "Can you please take our child off this book, please?" But he still appears in the book, even though he was never vaccinated against COVID, so it couldn't have been the vaccination that did anything.
It's sad.
It's baby sad. Killer.
It's not worth it. But when it comes to RFK Jr., I think he's either specifically a Trump plant, like Trump made him run or got him to run specifically to take Democratic votes away, or in more sinister is more of a Russian connection to that. And there might, that's just more of a conspiracy theory on that one. But I do believe that his job is to take Democratic votes away from, was Joe Biden, now it's Kamala Harris.
Yeah. Which he's doing. I mean, then we saw what a spoiler candidate can do. Was it Jill Stein in 2016, who took crucial votes away from Hillary Clinton, and that that was on a knife edge in some states. And then I remember back in 2000, was it Ralph Nader? Was it the spoiler candidate? And considering that George W. Bush ended up winning that election by less than 500 votes, because that's when they stopped recounting the votes.
They actually had to go to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
and have the Supreme Court. And guess what happens if that happens now?
What happens?
If that happens, the Supreme Court is going, because that's Trump land right now.
Yes.
It's going to go for Trump.
Yep. 6 feet Trump.
And so, so that's why we have to go and we have to vote and we have to continue to fight these fights, because the things like gerrymandering is destroying our getting kicked off the voter rolls. If there are any Americans out there right now, check your voter registration status, especially if you are run by Republicans, because those are the ones that are kicking you off of the voter rolls.
Yeah,
those are the ones that are destroying your right to vote.
Well, this is the whole thing, isn't it? They tried to do the same in this country. They brought in voter ID in a country where we don't have ID cards. So if you don't have a car and therefore you don't have a driving license, or you can't afford to go on holiday, so you don't have a passport, they took away your right to vote. And can you have any guesses of which segments of society were disproportionately affected by this, Brenna?
I'm going to have to say Black people, brown people, and immigrants.
Yes. So
See,
yeah.
you guys are not too far off from us. So I
Well,
think
I see the UK as a bit of a petri dish or a petri dish for America. We saw that with Brexit and the shit that Cambridge Analytica got away with in 2016 in the UK, and then they exported that same model on a bigger scale to the US. They micro-targeted voters. What does this person care about? They care about polar bears, and they sent adverts to their Facebook account, to their Facebook feed that said the EU is killing all the polar bears. What does this person care about? Cups of tea. They sent an image to that person saying the EU is going to take away your cup of tea. And it's just like, you've got to be kidding me. And they got away with it.
Yeah.
They all got away with it. Musk got away with it. Yeah, sorry, Zuckerberg got away with it, and all the people in Cambridge Analytica got away with it as well. They did a bunk. They did a runner. So yeah, it's it's not great. We've got loads of chats. We'll say hello to everyone in the chat. We'll say hello to Powers of the People, and also Simon Smith. We've got Alan in there. We've got Alan the Inquirer. That's a great name. We've got Nelly in there saying RFK grifter. Yeah, that's about the size of it. Cyrus is telling us he had throat cancer, and that's why he sounds the way he does. But it would be difficult listening to a speech, you know. Like, he knows he's not going to win. He's running as a spoiler candidate. I think until you have transferable votes or more proportional representational vote system in America, a third party that can actually get a hold on the nation, I think any independent candidate, especially for the presidency, is going to be a spoiler. Zoshalik says he's an insult to the existence of John F. Kennedy. And Nelly's pointing out that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. dumped a dead bear in Central Park. In the news today, he admitted that he found a bear. Did he hit a bear with his car, and then he put it in his car, and then he had to get to the airport, so he just dumped it in Central Park. I mean, the guy's not all there, really, is he?
He's not even a serious candidate. Like, he's not. This is not. If you actually look at the way people think as a whole in this country, none of what he is saying is what anybody wants.
Do you know anyone who's thinking of voting for him? Have you spoken to anyone who thinks he's got a good point about some old shit?
I do know some anti-vaxxers who have posted about RF Kennedy Jr., and I have not engaged with them because I think that is crazy. And I don't like it. Makes me sad because I've been around teachers my entire life, and one of the things that is required, especially in California, is that all students are vaccinated.
Yeah.
You actually the exception to that rule is so slim that it's really hard to.
Yeah.
So vaccinations are very important to me. I'm vaccinated. Everybody, all students here are vaccinated. So if somebody says that they're against vaccinations, especially for children, it breaks my heart because there are kids who are going through that and making sure that they get vaccinated so that they can go to school.
Yeah. Well,
and it hurts me.
My partner's deaf because she got measles as a kid. She couldn't be vaccinated because her brother had an allergic reaction to one of the ingredients in the vaccination at the time in the 1980s. And she never got vaccinated. At the age of 4, she got measles and went deaf like overnight. Lost something like 90% of her hearing. Now, you know, obviously it gets worse as you get older with hearing. She takes her hearing aids out. She can't hear anything at all. Absolutely nothing. So she's reliant on her hearing aids. And then you move into the world that's very, very ableist in that there are so few compensations made for people who are deaf. Like, you know, if you're on a train, you can't hear the announcements. Go to the cinema, there's no bloody subtitles on anything, which I complain about all the time on this channel. It drives you up the wall. We get like one showing a week, if you know, that we might be able to go to. So there's all that. And if the kids around her had been vaccinated back in the 80s, she probably wouldn't have got measles. But we weren't up to that vaccination rate. And also, I mean, like, if we're going to talk in sort of terms of goodies and baddies, I refuse to believe that the good people of Medicine Sans Frontier who I met and I stayed with when I was in the Democratic Republic of Congo, who were telling me how they use a light aircraft to fly to these villages in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of, and don't forget, Democratic Republic of Congo is the size of Western Europe. It is huge. And they're flying out in these light aircrafts, and they're having to drag a fridge through the jungle for 2 days to get to these little villages to vaccinate the children. And I refuse to believe they're doing that in order to give them mild learning difficulties.
Yeah. Well, it's also like these anti-vax things are, of course, also anti-autism.
Yes.
And thinking that
I would rather my child die or goes blind or deaf than has autism.
And it's it's anti-autism, and it's because autism is a disability. It's a learning disability. It's a behavioral disability, and that is considered a low society. Yeah. It's a low part of society. And we've working at a school, we have parents that refuse to get their children tested for autism or other learning disabilities because they didn't want them labeled.
Yeah. Well,
and it's
someone's just said
that's not how it works.
T-Rex in a top hat has just said that in the chat. My mother refused to have me tested for autism, now confirmed in my 30s, due to her thinking that people would then blame her due to the Andrew Wakefield debacle. She scoops down those kind of stuff. Yeah, that exactly. And what the damage that man has done, Andrew Wakefield, and his bunch of creepy weirdos who, I don't know, what do they want? Do they want to bring back smallpox? Do they want to bring back the Black Death? And it's all the same people who were grifting during the pandemic, which is very well predicted by the Jude Law character in that movie. You know, the one about the outbreak of a disease that went worldwide, and it had, I want to say, Gwyneth Paltrow in it, and it also had Matt Damon. It was called, someone help me in the chat. No, it wasn't Outbreak. That was...
I watched Outbreak during the Outbreak.
Outbreak is a 1990s film, wasn't it? Which had a very exciting helicopter chase in it, actually. But that's the one with Dustin Hoffman. No, this was 2010 or 2011. And it was Contagion. I think it was called Contagion. It had a completely forgettable name, which is probably why everyone forgets it. But I'm sure someone will tell me in the chat what it was. Jane says, I totally understand her troubles talking about my partner cat. I'm old and deaf. It's very isolating, even with a supportive family. Yeah, it is. And there's lots of things that Kat can't do easily. Like, we can't go to see stand-up comedy because it's hard enough for her to read lips at the best of times. But if there's a microphone in front of people's faces, sorry for everyone.
Oh, jeez.
It makes it even more difficult. And then you've got like live music. So if you go to a gig or something, she can go to a gig and enjoy it, but she can't hear the lyrics. She can't understand what's being sung. She can just hear the sounds of it. So she doesn't get the same emotional hit of a song that the rest of us just take for granted. And if we go out somewhere and there's lots of background noise, she can't hear what people are saying. And also, trying to read people's lips is bloody difficult. And so if you want to have a drink, after your first drink or your second drink, forget about it. You're not going to be able to do it because it's a very tricky thing to do. Someone's asking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What? Christopher says Andrew Wakefield wanted to sell his alternative measles vaccine, but the combined one has made his irrelevant. Yeah, because people were getting the separate measles, mumps, and rubella, 3 separate vaccines, which is more dangerous because you're actually puncturing your child's skin 3 times to do 3 separate injections instead of just doing it once. And you're more likely to get the risk of something going wrong, like an infection that could lead to sepsis in your child. That's more likely to happen the more things you stick into them. So, best just to put it all in one.
Vaccines work. Vaccines are fine. Vaccines have been tested. Vaccines have been highly regulated. So vaccines are not the bad guy here. It's the people who are telling you that vaccines are bad are the bad
and
guys.
They've usually got a grift going on. They've got their alternative thing.
Yes.
Like Matthias Rath, who was a guy who was a vitamin salesman who went to South Africa and told the government that they shouldn't, that there wasn't any connection between HIV and AIDS. And because of Matthias Rath and other people supported by the likes of Robert Kennedy Jr., 80,000 people died of AIDS in South Africa. It might be more than that, actually. Those are horrific numbers because the government were like, no, it's not real. And it took Nelson Mandela's son to admit that he had AIDS and it had come from HIV for things to actually change in that country.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of white people who wanted to exploit people in Africa. That makes such a change, doesn't it? Because it's usually the other way around, isn't it? Historically. Yeah. Anyway, so we talk about Secret of the Ooze. Why is everyone talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Did I say something about the Turtles? Did I? I don't know. Power to the People says, I'm almost deaf in one ear from years of playing loud electric guitars and going to festivals, standing next to speaker stacks. I really struggle with rooms full of people and have the subtitles on. Well, in my old age, I go everywhere with this little, I've got a couple of earplugs in here. They look like, earbuds that you put in with a wire, but they don't have a wire. And I need them because I can't take the loud noises all the time. So it's a little thing that I just pop into my ear.
Yes. I have some of those too. And they're really helpful, especially if it's not just for loud sounds, but also if you want to just concentrate. They're good for people who have, or that may have be on the spectrum or something, that it's really good to just block out stuff that you without completely covering. So I have the ones for night, which are for covering my ears, and then I have the ones that allow me to just hear a little bit.
Yeah.
Highly recommended.
I went to see the new Mad Max film a few weeks ago with my mate Ben, and it started, and he went to me, God, it's loud, and I went, I know, and pulled out me in my ears.
You're like, what?
And it came out at the end, and he went, oh, it's a great film, but it was just too bloody loud, and I was like, oh, it's all right. I came prepared.
Yes.
T-Rex in the hospital said, if vaccines gave me autism, I'd rather that than have to live in an iron lung. Thanks for the offer, though. Autism is hard, but iron lung is, well, it's an iron lung. Exactly. Stephanie says, I think the weird label is working in Harris as prosecutor versus felon riff. Yes, absolutely, Stephanie. Let's talk about this. So,
yes,
felon is one insult, but it needs explaining. Traitor is another insult, but it needs explaining. Weird does not need explaining. It's just there. It's just like clear as day. And you can get it from a single picture of any of these weirdos, especially Trump, King Weirdo, being weird. And you're like, there you go. You got a little gif of him dancing. It's weird.
There's these great memes where it's like it's David Tennant's doctor, and he's just like, because he whispered about the
Prime Minister.
Prime Minister, right?
Doesn't she look tired?
Doesn't she look tired? And then it's like, doesn't he look weird?
Yes.
That's it. I mean, that's kind of what it is. It's subtle enough. It's not overly done. Like it's not racist.
It doesn't need explaining, and you can't. Yeah, you can't argue against it. And if you call him a racist, that's not going to upset racists. But if you call him weird, the people who support him, their whole shtick is that they are the normal ones. They're the ordinary people. They're the silent majority. They're the patriots, and everyone else is marching out of step. All these people with their gay ideas and, allowing black people to have nice jobs and cars and things. How dare they? They're the weirdos. And to flip the script on them is
it's
a work of probably quite unintentional genius, but it is genius nonetheless. Genius in hindsight.
It's perfect.
So yeah. Nelly's saying don't use ear sticks either to clean your ears. They're bad. Q-tips. Don't use Q-tips. Something that literally it says on the packet, do not put in your ear. And yet that's what people buy them for. My consultant told me to stop going to concerts or I'll end up completely deaf. So I stopped, says Gary Arnold. Weird is bland after 3 days. Ask any comment, says Brain Filter. Well, yeah, I mean, good, fine. Turn them into bland. Power to the people saying, I like Midas Touch and Luke Beasley for US politics, but they both do very clickbaity thumbnails. Wow, I try to do a little bit of clickbait, but it's always like Trump destroyed by a US court. And you watch it and it's like some lawyer just said something. And you're like, okay. Reason it came up was the June the 6th case is back with Judge Cannon. What?
What happened? Oh
June 6th? No, she was never on the June 6th case. She was on the documents case.
Oh,
June 6th was a completely different case. I know it's hard to keep up.
January 6th.
Jane says Trump cannot tolerate any critique. It's his psychological kryptonite. I don't think you're wrong there. And Jane says they are the weird ones, obsessed with sexuality and public toilets. Just saying. Yeah, on that note, J.K. Rowling hasn't apologised yet for misgendering Imaine Khalifa, who was a woman, was born a woman, is a woman. There's no doubt about it. It's the only doubt that was thrown in there was the Russian-backed IBA, which was so corrupt, it's been backheeled by the International Olympics Committee. No word of contrition from J.K. Rowling, who from now on I'm going to call XY Rowling until she proves otherwise.
Yep, there you go.
Let's see your DNA, Joanne.
Yeah, sure.
And he's saying, I want to see a Trump impersonator singing Creep by Radiohead. I'm a creep, I'm a weirdo. There is a guy on TikTok who has literally done that last week. So it's very, very funny. I'll try and dig it out for you, Ernie, and maybe put a link to it on my channel. And then Powers of the People. Melena turns against Trump. Sensation. And then you watch it and all she's done is roll her eyes at one of his speeches. I've only held his hand for a few seconds, lol. Yeah. Legal Eagle put up an explainer vid for Project 2025. I like Eagle Eagle. It's one of the other American YouTubers that I subscribe to. So yeah, I'll have to have a look at that. Dylan Burns has been really good for Ukraine news. So we're bigging up the other channels here. And Stephanie Wilson saying, no, Cannon is a sycophant in Georgia. I thought,
no.
Hang on.
Cannon's in Florida.
Yeah, Florida. Eileen Cannon, she's in Florida.
She's the sycophant in Florida.
She's doing the documents case.
Yeah, it's... Come on, get your Trump cases right.
There's just so many of them.
Which one are we talking about now? Okay.
Yeah.
Which horrible crime was this?
Yes. Well, the horrible crime is that there is a chance that Trump might actually win this election. So what's your feeling on sort of how the next? Because we've got 90 days, haven't we, until the election?
Yep.
It's not that long. It's not that far away, is it? Well, for you lot, your election's go on for 2 years. Are you?
What's interesting is that this actually seems like a British election because it actually is much shorter than what we are, because it's a different candidate than we've had before. So it actually does feel a little bit more like you can see the enthusiasm actually grow instead of, as you know, about for an entire year, even more, sometimes candidates will campaign for, and you start to dribble out after a while. And you start to get fatigued. And I think this is different because of that. I think you're going to see more of the excitement sort of grow. It may kind of plateau a little bit, especially when we're starting to get to the end of it, where we did that. I mean, that's normal. We just sort of get kind of bored with it. We want it over. Because it takes so long. And of course, Trump has been campaigning for 4 years, because that's what he does. He has no other job because he's lost every business that he has.
Exactly. Okay, so I don't know if this is breaking news because I can't find it on the news wires yet. But thank you very much for the super chat. Anyway, Michael. Michael's just dropped a couple of quid in the super chat. Thank you. 6th of January in court next week. I think that's what people are trying to say. And by the way, Judge Duncan has already dismissed objections from Trump dating back to 2023. And it's, so Yeah. Stephanie says it is Judge Duncan who is the January 6th case. I apologise to Georgia. They have enough problems. Indeed, they do. Well, if it does go back to court this week, that's fantastic because I didn't think any of these were going to actually be heard before.
I mean, that was the Trump team's job, basically, when it came to these, is just to push them after the election, so that if he does get in, which he was on the rise to do that, that was going to happen. Then he wouldn't have to actually go to court, and then he could, because he has absolute immunity now. Thanks Supreme Court for that. Thanks, guys. You ruined everything. Then he wouldn't have to do it. He could basically dismiss it all and say that, he doesn't have to do it. And then he doesn't have to get out of actually being president. And then he can be president for life. Just like
yes.
Putin.
Well, that's the plan, isn't it?
Yeah. So this should scare people. And I don't understand how it's not scaring people as much as it's scaring somebody like me.
Because they don't think it'll happen to them. It's the old leopards eating people's faces party, isn't it? It's like they think bad things are going to happen to other people, and that makes them feel good. It's like, it's sad. It's sad that that's the only thing they've got in their life, is to just, I don't know, demonize minorities and to laugh when other people fail. But yeah, I mean that's it, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I used to. I mean, I used to be able to get on with people from other political backgrounds a lot easier than I do now, because it was never this existential. It was never this much like, no, we literally want to wipe people like you out, Graham, or whoever. Because we don't like the way you live your life. That has no impact on you whatsoever.
It's all about if it doesn't match them, you are the other. Like, and that hurts. It hurts. Your existence hurts them.
Yeah. Nelly says it'll never happen here. Thinking it's the same thinking that people voted for Hitler for in 1933. Mm-hmm. They thought, I'll be fine. I'll be all right. And then their children were sent away to war and never came home. T-Rex in the hat. How does the US government get much done if so much time is taken up by elections? I'm sorry if that comes across as blunt. T-Rex, nothing gets done in America domestically. Like, the number of actual bits of legislation that get passed through the House, both houses.
It's actually criticism that I have, especially of my congressional representatives. They're voted on every 2 years. Yeah. So, and of course, as I just said, it takes a year to campaign for your next election.
Yeah.
So that's only 1 year that they get to sit and they do stuff. And a lot of the new ones don't do anything because they don't know how. So it can take several elections for a congressional representative to actually be able to do something. And it's a criticism that I have. I don't like voting every 2 years for my congressional representative. I don't want to fundraise every year. Like every other year, it just happens to be a fundraising year for them. And then they spend a lot of time going and doing fundraising events. And look, my congressional representative right now is Katie Porter. And if you know anything about U.S. politics, Katie Porter is the one with the whiteboard, and she goes after financial institutions. Very smart professor. Love her. But I don't want to keep fundraising for her. I want her to do her damn job.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to.
It shouldn't be about the money. It shouldn't be about
exactly. The money. And that is one of the problems also, that we are constantly having to fundraise because, as we have said before, our election cycle is so long. If we shortened it, we wouldn't have to fundraise for very long. We would just get it out there, do what we can, and then get elected.
Well, also, I mean, if they made it so that people couldn't get so much money, there was a cap. You can raise 50 grand. That's it. Yeah. That's all you get. Print some flyers, do some little badges for people, pop some badges out. I mean, that'll do. And then you got a situation where Elon Musk is saying, "I'm giving $85 million to the Trump campaign every month until the election." You're like, what? How is that even remotely legal? He's like, oh, well, the Supreme Court sorted that out for us. So us rich, horrible butthurt, aggrieved white guys can basically go on running the world.
It takes it away from the people, and I don't. That is frightening, because the more and more these wealthy people get wealthier, the more they're going to spend on their candidates, and the more the rich is. It's almost like it's turning into an oligarchy, but.
Oh, almost as if. Jupp is pointing out that the problem weren't just the people who voted for the Nazis in 1933. It was also the Conservatives who helped them getting enough votes to change the Constitution, which is right. And also President, was it Hindenburg? It was, who put Hitler in charge. And they never won an election outright. After that, it was just referendums all the way, where the yes box was like this big, or the yes circle was this big, and the no circle was this big.
Trump already said that's how it's going to be. He already said that there were going to no more voting. So.
Yeah. But a lot of ordinary people thought, yeah, that sounds fine. It's not going to affect me. And it did, because it does,
It affected, most of Europe, for that matter.
Yes, most of the world.
And then the world came into it. Thanks.
Yeah. Power to the People says, I'm not sure we can say it's any better when it's allowed Farage, Tyson Anderson to get seats in Parliament. I think it's better. In some ways, and not so in other ways. But I think that the big problem with American politics at the moment is that you have way too much power in the hands of very, very, very few people, considering it's a nation of over 330 million people. How can the 9 people who are on the Supreme Court, well, just half of them, 5 people or 6 people on the Supreme Court, and the president have such an inordinate amount of power to change the laws of a country, go to war with whoever they want to. Don't have to ask anyone's permission.
And we're not represented. Arsenal. We're not represented correctly. Even the way that it's set up, we're still not represented correctly. Yeah. California itself would have 100, maybe 200 more votes if we were actually going it by population, by equal population across. And that's never going to happen, because nobody wants the coastal elite. You're welcome. To have any power, because
we just want you to pay all the taxes that pay
it's only because our economy is better than pretty much the whole of the United States. But we're not talking about that.
Yeah.
I talk about that all the time.
T-Rex is saying, I'll disagree with the use of the term turning into an oligarchy. The only difference between oligarchs and billionaires is the nomenclature. The US has been an oligarchy for the last 15 years. Fair enough. Can't argue with that.
Okay, I get that. I get that.
And one angry pagan's telling us that citizens in Plymouth have been warned to stay away from the city centre this evening. I've been there's been disturbances, riots over the weekend around this country, brewed up by the flames of which were fanned by right-wing politicians and other dickheads, the sort of dickheads. So Nigel Farage, obviously, is the one that we talk about the most. But obviously, also, there's a guy called Tommy Robinson. We call him Tommy 10 Names because that's not actually his name. And he's pissed off to Cyprus. He's on holiday with his family while his little foot soldiers are getting arrested for throwing bricks at the police and probably going to spend about 20 years in jail each. And then you've got Lawrence Fox, who was an actor. He was a member of the Fox acting dynasty, along with Jamie and Michael J. That's not right, is it? But he's skipped the country as well. He said, it's time for a war. Yeah, I'm declaring war. This means war. And then he left the country.
God, sounds like Ted Cruz when his entire state was under blizzard. He was like, I'm going to Cancun.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, that was a big deal because there was a blizzard. Temperatures were incredibly low. Power went out because Texas has to be different. Yeah. And they can't be on the same grid as everybody else. And then he went to Cancun with his family and and threw his child under the bus for that one. Oh, I had to drop off my daughter.
Yeah.
Thanks.
In Mexico.
Thanks, buddy.
Stephanie's pointing out that Musk has backtracked fast and is not giving the felon anything, apparently. That's what he says. But, he says 2 words and one of them's going to be a lie at least. Didn't Farage go to private school so he'll be okay, said Nellie Olson. Yes. Yes, he did, along with Johnson and Andy Wigmore and Richard Tice and Jacob Rees-Mogg. They all went to school together, and then they tell the mob to go and smash stuff up and They end up burning down a library in Liverpool, got burned down over the weekend by a mob. A library that only opened last year and was set up to help young people get jobs in one of the most deprived areas in our continent. Yeah.
Terrible.
Nice of the millionaires to set people up like that. But yeah, I'm going to just do a super chat animation, but this is for Questionable Insanity, who's been a member for 12 months. I think today is my politics/Labour social anniversary. It is! Congratulations, Questionable Insanity. Thank you for sticking with us for a year. And T-Rex is saying, I meant no disrespect to the opinions of your wonderful guest, Brenna. So yeah, don't worry about that. Anyway, so... yes, Brenna probably knows Fox's uncle from Day of the Jackal, the good version. So his uncle played the Jackal in the original 1960s version of Day of the Jackal, which got remade in the 1990s with Bruce Willis, I think. And it was just called The Jackal, and has now just been remade again for a movie that's coming out next month called Day of the Jackal. Because if a movie's worth making once, it's worth making several times over.
Yeah, you might
as so yeah, I'm going to wrap it up there. We've gone a little bit over time, so I've got to get going. Thank you so much for stepping in at the last minute here, Brenna, because Mikey was supposed to be on today, but I had to move the time forward a couple of hours for personal reasons. So thank you for the last minute, literally 3 minutes to 6. Mikey hadn't got back to me, and I'm like, Brenna, could you make it today? And you're like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's fine.
Awesome. And I came into my room, but everything was still shut down from when I had the power cut this morning. I was like,
it's back up, right?
Double fast. Anyway, so thank you very much for watching. Huge thank you to Brenna for giving up her time and missing a bit of the Olympics and playing video games to talk to us. Are you enjoying the Olympics? Are you going to miss them when they're gone?
Oh, I love the Olympics. I can't wait for the next couple of years to get to the Winter Olympics. Of course, I'm a big Winter Olympics fan because I'm a curling fan. I'm a curler. So I love the Olympics. I love international sport, and I love the way. And I can't wait because there's Paralympics after the regular Olympics, so I get to see that, and I love it. I love sport.
Okay. So the next Olympics is going to be in LA.
Yes.
Okay,
the next Summer Olympics.
Yeah, next Summer Olympics. So if Kamala wins, if she wins, and then, America turns a corner in that respect, I will go through the motions of getting myself a bloody visa so I can come to America, and I'll come over to LA for the Olympics. There you go.
Yes.
If I can, if I'm in a financial position to do so. But we'll see how it goes. All right, Brenna, thank you so much.
All right.
Like I say, enjoy the Olympics, and to everyone watching, thank you for the chat. Thank you for the super chats. And until tomorrow morning, when Phil will be stepping in for Morning Brew at 9:30, I'll say thanks for watching. Give us a like on the way out. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.